Yeah, portfolio should not be based on your competency. It needs to demonstrate your competency, but more than that, it needs to be interesting and it needs to be memorable. So I've talked about this with other elements of art, like how a cover should be iconic and kind of all one color so it can be more memorable. But a portfolio can be like that too. And usually when I'm getting questions about portfolios, it tells me roughly where this person is in terms of what's interesting to them. And you don't often hear established pros talk about their portfolios, although honestly some of them could stand to consider it and sort of curate what they share, especially when they're trying to pivot their careers. But when you're presenting yourself as a portfolio and as a person, I think the worst thing you can do is be competent. Like if you're just competent, it's not that interesting, and art directors have the pick of the litter when it comes to competency. But when you look at the artists that are getting work, typically they're bringing a certain voice or vision. I don't even want to use the word style because that's really not the important part here. But their work is communicating something consistently, something that the art director can rely on. So when you get given a book as an artist, are they going to get something that shows that the character is cool? Or are they going to get something that shows that the character is emotionally conflicted? Or are they going to get something like, I'm thinking Catherine Lamb, that it feels a little like you're an outsider and it's lonely here. There's so many different things you can say with your art, but am I competent or I am competent? These aren't really compelling or good things to say. I can't tell you how many times I've seen woman lays in the water and her hair's all out and there's lily pads. There's a lot of amazing paintings like that, but just for that exact same reason, if you're not bringing something new to that, if you're not freshening it up, if you're not making me go, this one's like none I've ever seen, well, I can't even think of all the artists' names now that I've seen that painting from. Knight on horse in front of sunset. Yeah, I've seen a lot of that. Person standing on conveniently placed hill in front of castle. Yeah, I've seen that. So there's a lot of these paintings and you think, well, if I want to get hired, I need to show that I can do that kind of painting. That is absolutely backwards. You actually want to show a kind of painting you can do that most people don't do or wouldn't even attempt or aren't interested in. And don't just go out of your way to make something unique. Go out of your way to make something that's yours, that's uniquely yours, because you have something in there to say that nobody else is going to exactly say. And if a portfolio shows that, no art director is going to pass on that person. Now they might say you're not quite ready, and they're just going to open up because they want to bring that into the world, these sort of authentic visions and voices and methods of painting. They're inundated with people that are nervous about, are they competent? And so that's not where you want to be. I've also answered in another video about how to network with art directors and kind of get started. It's different per industry, but maybe watch some of those videos so that each section doesn't balloon out and get too long. The main things I would say is go 100%, be in person, be super nice. Work on your character just as much as you work on your artwork. It's really important. Because you get hired as an illustrator. Basically, you will never know. It's not your job to know. It's your job to not be too scared to put your work out there all the time. Even when I was getting started, I was posting my work all over Facebook for friends to see. Back when Facebook was a bigger deal. I was on every forum, anywhere that I could sort of intelligibly curate a presence for myself and without losing quality, right? How many social media sites can you keep up there where it's just like, I don't even remember, do I have that work on Blue Sky or is it on Twitter or is it on whatever? It's just like a lot to keep up with, but the important thing is to find the people specifically that you want to hire you, sort of target them for cold calls or emails or get their contact info somehow, and then just check in with them, every 6 months, every couple of months. Everybody has a different cadence, and with all of this, I think it's important that you are doing what is respectful to the person whose time and attention you're asking for, but you just say, hey, do you want to hire me? Hey, do you want to hire me? Hey, did some new work. Do you want to hire me? And one day they go, yeah! And then you're good enough because you just got hired. I think a lot of the things I wished I had known, I did know. And that's because I was really obsessive about reading and perusing the internet and the culture of people who were making the work I wanted to make. And even now, I think there's a greater ability to do that than ever before. But because we feel this convenience of technology, sometimes we don't put in that effort. So just to give you an example, there's this website Muddy Colors where every day a professional artist, historically, posts a blog article about making art. They talk about all different elements of being in the field that I wanted to be in. And a lot of people will find that site and go, cool. They'll read a few articles that they're interested in, and then they'll read like whichever ones come up daily in their feed. that kind of speak to them, like the title sounds interesting. When I found that website, I went back and read 5 articles a day or more every day until I'd read the entire site. It was years and years and years worth of information. But you have to build up a big database of all this information so that you understand the field you're trying to join. I mean, I don't remember which book it was exactly, maybe Mastery by Green, where he talks about being a student of your field. But a lot of people have that concept, right? And so when you are trying to break into a field, the field doesn't owe you anything. You owe quite a bit to the field at first. If you're trying to join it and find it where it is, then you need to know everything about it. And the field is constantly changing, so that can feel very onerous. But at the same time, if this is your calling, if this is what you want to do, I mean, think about somebody who wants to join the NBA but like doesn't know the names of the good teams or the good players or who the managers are or what the management principles are like. It's going to be harder for them to get scouted, get integrated. And so, yeah, you want to know all about this stuff. And I think I was lucky to know a lot of things. It's easy for me. It's natural for me to want to read and to learn. I use gaining information as a way to counteract my own fear. If that's a strategy you can borrow, I really hope you do. And there's other ways to absorb it now. If you are someone who learns more through listening, there's a lot of great art podcasts. You can search the names of your favorite artists and the word interview. You will probably find some. You can watch videos on YouTube. You can join Patreons and watch tutorials, but the right information is out there, and I think there's no such thing as too much information. The last thing I really needed to know, and sometimes you need to know this on faith, and I had it on faith at first, but later I learned it intellectually and for myself actually, is that there would be a job for me at the end of all this. If you're knocking on the vault of your own effort, and you're saying, hey, body, will you let out some effort? Will you commit to this? And you're trying to convince yourself that this is a place where you can make a living and make a career, and definitely you can, then you need to know that there's something in it for you. I had friends early on that I would say like, I spent 30 hours on this painting, and they would say, well, what would you have to charge like per hour to make that a living? And I would tell them, they'd be like, you're never gonna make that. I make 2 or 3 or sometimes 15 or 20 times that number now. And I remember I first heard this from the artist Dave Raposa. He used to do a thing where he would just draw with a buddy and they would just chat. And one of them, I think it was Dave, or maybe they both said that they'd heard this from someone else, but this is where I first got exposed to this idea. They said at the top, there's very little competition at the top. So your job as an artist trying to join the field is to gain all the information and the skills to make it to the top. Don't get stuck in the middle. There's a broad middle with art, and it doesn't pay very much. And the way things are trending, that's going to be even more true. You want to make it to the top. And so you have to be sort of humble, you have to be hungry for information, you have to be in love with the challenge, and you have to know that there's something in it for you. And there is totally something in it for you. There are so many different ways to make a living as an artist now. I mean, I've felt it. Once you get further on, you start to see there's not a lot of people who can do this. You're gonna have work. Everybody has different things that restrict them or keep them from moving forward with something. So sometimes it's access. They don't have the technology. When I first wanted to paint digitally, my school even didn't have a Wacom tablet that I could draw with to input things in the computer. So I was doing everything with a mouse after drawing it with a pencil and scanning it in. And then finally I found this artist who had posted some information about how he paints. It was John Avon, who did a lot of my favorite land cards from Magic the Gathering. That was my first entree into fantasy art, was Magic the Gathering art. So I emailed him and I was like, is this really what you use? And how good of a computer do I need? And he very kindly answered and said, here's what I use. It sounds like you're gonna have the right things, but you really need the Wacom tablet. And that year I was turning 21 and I was supposed to go to Vegas with my dad. And he said, well, if you're willing to cancel the Vegas trip, then we can get you this, if this is what you really need to like chase your dreams and do this career. And it was just a no-brainer. I mean, it was sad. I wanted to go to Vegas with my dad for turning. That would have been awesome, right? We still have never done that. But the Wacom tablet was totally essential. So I would say you want to make sure there's no technical restraints. You need the good software. There's exceptions to this, but whatever technology you get familiar with is going to be comfortable for you, and some of them don't scale up. So for example, I love Procreate and I think it's great for drawing. I keep it on my iPad. I use it when I'm out and about. I mean, that's not really the kind of artist that I am, but on occasion, if I'm at a figure drawing class, we do a longer pose and I'm like, I didn't bring paints. Oh, but I have my iPad. I can throw some color down. It's great for stuff like that, but it has certain difficulties for high level production work that I wish it wasn't the case, and I think that the team there is doing a great job, and they'll probably continue to push things. But right now, right now it's literally the same as when I was getting started, where if I was seeing anyone get into digital, I would say ignore every other program but Photoshop. And it's hard to say that because they have this subscription model now, and it's very expensive. It can feel prohibitive. I think they have specials for students, and hopefully they have access to these kinds of things through their school, which I didn't have. But they should be working in Photoshop. They should be working with some kind of Wacom tablet. A Bamboo will do just fine these days. The lower end Wacom tablets are still better than using a mouse. And if they can, get one of the ones where they can draw on the screen. I use a Cintiq now, which is another Wacom product, but a lot of the other brands making similar products are making really high grade stuff. I know other professional illustrators who use an XP pen or a Huion, I think is how it's pronounced, and they can all work. So having the technical, working in the best programs, because that's what you're gonna need in the future. Those are essentials. Then I would say, don't be afraid of the learning curve. There is so much to learn about Photoshop. So try to learn it one piece at a time. There's brushes, use the brushes. Just do everything with brush. Once it makes sense to you and you can do whatever you want with the brush, add in the smudge tool, the clone stamp tool, there's so many different tools. And really, I remember Craig Mullins saying this, that you just need to build in some sandbox time in your day. So if it's like 20 minutes in the morning while you're warming up your hand, especially when you work on a flat tablet that's not the screen itself, like an Intuos, you kind of need to calibrate your brain each morning, because the movement pattern of the hand when you're not drawing where you're looking is a little abstracted. You're moving your hand, you're just kind of warming up for the day. Just try a tool you've never used before, see what it does. And we're in a really good time in that if you don't know what it does, ask the internet, you'll find a resource. But don't be afraid of that learning curve, because there's so much of Photoshop that even now, like, I don't know, and I'll get exposed to something new. I'll pick up a little trick here, I'll pick up a little trick there. But watch everything, read everything. I mean, this is going to be a recurring theme through these videos and these answers, it seems, but there's no such thing as too much knowledge unless you're afraid of knowledge. But knowledge can only help you. There's nothing in you that's going to be stifled artistically by learning more about your chosen medium. And you should feel that way with any medium, by the way. I think a lot of this advice could work for watercolor, could learn for oil, could work for oils, but learn everything. Don't be afraid of the learning curve. And then the third thing as a digital artist would just be really having super high standards about what you're willing to look at and what you're willing to imitate, because digital art has in some ways lowered the barrier for entry for artists. So many people can do it, and you can jump in and you can learn and you can do things, which means there's this explosion of art out there. And a lot of it's really fun and a lot of it's really good, but is it great? When Craig Mullins started digital painting at, I think it was at like a car company, he was using Photoshop to like paint reflections in the windows so they didn't have to take these cars out to the desert and photograph them. He was saving them tons of money. It was super useful. And then from there, he kind of started to like paint with the program in a way that felt naturalistic. That means that the entire history of digital art is since the late 80s. So recent. So you really need to cherry pick. Some people think you should really give everything credence, but I think it's important to be kind of a snob with this stuff. Look at who's got a deep history of work, got the right sort of education that they're bringing to bear. That doesn't mean anything about certain schools or certain programs. Have they educated themselves? Are they trying to be a master of this thing? And then, do you like the work? Not just does it get a lot of likes, is it popular, but do you like the work? And do you think you'll like it in 10 years? Be really careful in that way and be very judicious and look only at the best, because they say garbage in, garbage out. And if you bring in something great, you're probably more likely to do something great. And especially when you can get on like ArtStation and look at the high reses of these things and see, it's easy to trick the eye, right? Like as an artist, oh, this painting feels so loose. When you get close up, sometimes it's not. So again, that kind of harkens back to learning everything you can, but really look at these paintings and the best painting and use those to push yourself. There's two main levers that you can pull as an illustrator and business person, which I guess is kind of the core of this question. You can spend less, or you can make more. The ways to spend less are so many. I mean, if you just want a master course on spending less, I would just search up Mr. Money Mustache and read that whole blog. This is a guy who started what is now often referred to as the FIRE movement, Financial Independence, Retire Early. I don't know if he started it, but he's like mixed up in all that. There's a ton of resources out there, but nothing better than his free blog, really. You just read it. Some people don't like it in that it's like a little aggressive. He's like, if you're gonna buy fancy potatoes instead of normal guy potatoes, just punch yourself in the face. But it's all just sort of in good fun, and he backs off on that persona a little bit as he goes forward. And yeah, I mean, I remember Sam Weber used to have a podcast, and on it, he hosted Dave Palumbo at one point, and the two of them were talking about how important it is to keep your expenses down as an illustrator, especially when you're getting started. If somebody is offering to do something for you for money, or a service is asking for your money, you need to judge those services and products and spaces and opportunities really harshly. Think of them like a business person. You know, is this exposure in this gallery where I might sell a print or a painting, but I have to get the thing framed. There's custom framing involved, so there's 100 or 150 bucks. Then I have to have the time of being there. If I sell the print for 300 bucks in the frame, then was it even worth my hourly? Versus if this print could potentially get seen by art directors, that might have a whole lot more value. Judge things really carefully in that way. In terms of making more money, everything is a little microcosm of that. So when you get an illustration, you can look at the budget and go, okay, for that much money, what do I have to do? What do I have to change to make this a good exchange? So when I got started, I did short fiction pieces for Tor.com where they paid $1,000, but they were really loosey-goosey in terms of like, it could be any dimensions. I had a lot of freedom in terms of the art briefs. I just read the story and then painted what I thought was cool. And of course the art directors weighed in on, at the time it was Irene Gallo, would weigh in on which sketches she liked, and then if she had any tweaks at the end, those kinds of things. But overall, compared to other jobs I work on now, that's a pretty loose and pleasant structure overall. But $1,000, right? My expenses now would just eat me alive if I just took $1,000 jobs. But I can take them because I just change my behavior when I take that job. If I'm doing a piece for $1,000, and at the time what I did is I would, and that's good money. I don't want to poo-poo it. I have other things I'm responsible for now that I wasn't at the time when I was in my mid-20s. I kept my expenses super low. I split a house with some friends, so low rent, which is harder to come by these days. I would shoot my friends for models when I needed reference. I would rent costumes from a local costume shop rather than buy them, or I would buy items on Amazon and then return them. These are all things you can do to keep your expenses down. I bought a secondhand camera from a friend. I still use that camera for my reference shoots today. It's like a 2010 or 2011 model. So just everything. You just want to practice this frugality. At the same time, that's only on the business side. When it comes to developing yourself, there's no end to the money and time you should be willing to invest. Now, you don't want to do it foolishly because buying a book on anatomy isn't the same as knowing it. But if you need a book on anatomy, you should never hesitate. You should buy the book. You should always develop yourself, because the opposite side of keeping your expenses down is increasing your profit. I haven't yet really found an upper cap to how much you can make off art if you are good at running your business and you have a certain skill level where you can do what the clients need. There's a high demand. People think that all these jobs are disappearing, but among my close friends and the other peers and artists that I talk to, they're all working, and it pays great. Shoot for that, right? And believe in yourself and develop yourself. Early on, I heard some different advice. I mean, I think the general business book isn't going to help you with this too much, but always be willing to increase your rates. If you increase your rates and people are just saying yes to them, increase them again. If you're booked for 3 to 6 months, increase them again. Just keep raising your rate. You will find the limit. And I've heard some illustrators say, well, once you raise your rate, you can't lower it. Yes, you can. Even like Apple will put their products on sale occasionally. Now they might do it by selling them to BrandSmart, like BrandSmart selling for cheaper so they don't dilute their brand and be perceived as sort of running sales. I've had clients where I go, oh, the price is this, and they go, but we wanted to do this project with you, and I perk up like, ooh, that's a cool project. You know, I can lower it this time, as long as I have the print rights or whatever. You know, find a way, modulate. I think artists broadly are rather afraid that the client will just ghost them. If they say too high of a number, the client will just ghost them. And I've literally never had that happen. At the very least, they say, interesting, we'll think about it and get back to you. But the door's still open, and you could always email them later and go, you know, I was thinking about it more. And they might say, oh, well, that job's gone already. But if you're willing to honor that rate, we have this other project. Because good artists who can do the jobs are in short supply. So be one of them. And if you have more specific questions about this, follow up again after. It's a little hard to read from the question, what is the exact problem to be overcome, if it's more of a general question about making a living, or if it's that you're getting a lot of work but it's not feeling very profitable. I will say, because I've mentioned in other videos, there's this broad middle to art where you can make $100, a couple $100 on illustrations. Stop doing those. Don't do anything like that, because there's this wheel you can get stuck on where you do those jobs thinking they'll eventually spin you up towards the higher paying jobs. But when you reference some of these other videos that we're going to release about portfolio building and being interesting and having a voice, really that's not how it works, and you can get caught just keeping up with your own self, not even the Joneses, just, I just got to pay my rent every month, and so I will do as many $200 cards as I can for Kickstarter campaigns. And it's not going to translate. Whether you need to do something else to step back, get better, and then step back into the industry at a higher level, whether you need to invest in mentorship. I mean, I don't think take drastic risks, right? But some people are even afraid to like use a little credit here and there. I mean, I had a credit card when I was getting started, and if a class came up that was with an instructor I'd been wanting to work with for years, and it was like $800 or $1,000, and I didn't have that money, I'd bet on myself. You know, I'd take the class, and then I'd keep working at I worked in animation. I like sometimes didn't have a job. And you'll make it back, because as you get better, the pay is exponential. That's how it increases. Don't shoot for the middle. Never shoot for the middle as an artist. You would rather fail and be a horrible failure or just piss people off with your art. That would be better than just to be in the middle. It would be great. You want to be great or terrible? I really don't. I mean, social media is just not that important for getting work in the industries I work in. You might get known that way, and it's possible. I wouldn't want to discourage anyone. If you have a big following or something, don't walk away from it. My page has always been a little on the smaller side compared to peers of mine, and it's just not where I put a lot of my energy, mostly because I just don't like it. And you have to work with what you like. When I say I don't like it, of course I like it. It's designed for me to like it. Everyone should like it because it's this super addictive cotton candy of information that you just want to gobble down. On the other hand, it makes me feel bad after. The same way I don't eat a whole tub of ice cream in one sitting much anymore, I also don't just numb out and go full glutton on my social media. And so keeping that at an arm's length, ironically, though we're sharing some of these via social media, you know, we want to answer these questions wherever people have them. Yeah, I don't mess with it too much, and I always give that advice to artists that they don't really need to. If you want to get work in publishing, there's like 7 or 8 people that can really realistically hire you where you are at right now. You just need their email. You don't need social media, and they don't need. A lot of them are backed off on social media right now, especially as it's fractured, and there's not these few big pillars like there used to be. You know, you used to be able to be on just Instagram and Twitter, and before that it was like you just needed to be on Facebook, and then it's decentralizing, it's going to lose its usefulness in that way. You can work your butt off to have a big following, but who benefits from that? Definitely Instagram or X or whomever, but who maybe benefits off it? You. And they keep tilting the scale more in the direction of them. I would say build up your email list, build up your client list, and just build good person-to-person relationships if you want to get work. I really don't focus on this too much. You may see a little more from us in the coming months just because we've got some exciting stuff that we want to share. What I do is I post work when I'm proud of it, and if I have something to say about it. Oh, this was a design I did and the thinking that went into it was this. Maybe I didn't crack that code, or maybe it's just not for me. But as an artist, it's important to max out on what's for you. What are you supposed to be doing? So if you're asking this question and you don't dig this stuff, don't do it. If you're asking this question and you dig this stuff and being out there and that was really good for you, then you should be teaching me.